Hey everyone, welcome back to But Why Though the podcast, where we talk about the things in pop culture that people say matter and ask the question, but why though? Before we get started, we wanted to make sure to tell y'all to head on over to our Twitter and Instagram at ButWhyThoughPC or our Facebook, facebook.com/ButWhyThoughPC. That way you can send us your fan but why those. Why are you part of a fandom? Why does it matter to you? We want to know and we want to put it up on our website. But if you're looking to support us a little bit more, head over to our Patreon. There you'll get exclusive content, access to our research notes, and even episodes a day to 2 days early. And if you subscribe at the $3 level, you'll get some merch. But at the end of the day, we're happy just to have you here listening to us. So share us with your friends, share us with your coworkers, share us with your Tinder dates. Just, share us. And enjoy the show.
I wanna be the very best, like no one ever was. To catch them is my real test, to train them is my cause.
Hey everyone, welcome back to But Why Though the podcast. And today we're talking about an anime, manga, video game, and all-around pop culture phenomenon, Pokémon. Yeah, guys. As always, I'm your host Kate, and I'm here with Adrian.
Do you want me to keep a straight face?
Yes. And Matt.
Hello.
Before we get started with anything today, we want to give a very warm and very thankful welcome to the But Why Though family to Jason Flatt, our newest Patreon patron. So thank you for thinking we're cool enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, I thought we were doing like a singing, like making it go up an octave every time we said
I
thank
thought we
you.
were doing that too.
Thank you.
Nope.
There we go. Got it. Thanks, Jason.
Yeah. No, he is also the host of the Holy Star Wars podcast, and it's a podcast about religion and its intersections with Star Wars. It's right up my alley, and if you're listening to us right now, you should definitely go listen to him too. And today, I am not leading an episode for the first time in 6 episodes?
Probably.
Wrong.
I don't know.
Wrong?
Yeah, he literally led just this week.
Well, that's like a side episode. This is a main episode.
And I kind of felt like I had to there.
That was
I would
out of
totally let that
necessity.
episode.
But it was, yeah.
You guys didn't want to know the color of Aquaman's contacts?
Yeah, it's all right. They're getting a full dose of me this month.
Yeah, so Adrian will be leading this episode. He is officially the trainer of the But Why Though Pokemon Gym tonight, guys. So take it away, Adrian.
Yeah, I want to be the very best. No? All right. So, as always, we're going to start with an intro question. And today's intro question is going to be, what is your interaction with Pokemon? Since it has such a big, wide medium of stuff. Where do you get your start? Do you still interact with it at all? And then your favorite Pokemon. Matt?
My interaction is back a long time ago when they first released the Game Boy edition of Pokemon. I saved up all my money and I bought an awesome teal Game Boy Color and Pokemon Red. And then now somehow I have Pokemon Blue after all these years, and I still don't know how I got that, and I do not know where my red one went. And this is really a true story, and it sometimes really befuddles me because I don't know.
I can testify to that because when we decided we were going to do a Pokemon episode, he got out his Game Boy Color and he was like, I forgot I had this. And then for the next 2 weeks after, he just kept mentioning, I don't know how this game got in here. I wonder how this game got in here. Just randomly.
So one day I will figure this out. But besides that, that's about the extent. I've seen a few of the episodes. I saw the movie, the very first one, a long, long time ago. But I have don't remember it that much, unfortunately. But I remember, I played a few of the other games as they came out, some of the 64 games, but I didn't play a lot of them. And obviously 64 is very dated, so I don't really recall a lot of them. As far as my favorite Pokemon, I like the Growlithe. I think that's how you say it. Mm-hmm. I like that one.
He's cute.
And I think by default, Charizard, since I bought the red one based on the fact that I wanted Charizard, and unfortunately, that was your go-to when you played those games because you needed a high-level character to beat stuff when the game made you mad.
I also feel like you are very representative of Charizard.
Okay.
in human form.
Okay.
No, like Ash's Charizard is awesome. Okay, whatever. I'm just saying it matches. Like shit, I would just be fucking Jigglypuff popping up and interrupting shit all the time. Like that would be me.
Holy moly, that is
right?
so accurate. Wait. What about you, Kate?
Yeah, so for me, I didn't play any of the games, but I remember watching every single damn episode of the original series. I don't know what the hell it's, I think is it Indigo League? Is that what like the official title is or whatever?
I think so. I mean, it's that like it's I don't remember if that's the official title or not. I don't know. There's so many of them now. And that whole like first block is like 3 different seasons, kind of like all like in one thing. But I know.
This podcast, this episode is pretty much going to be me going back in my day, like entirely, because like I was really into it when I was younger. If we're talking about like getting involved in anime, like Sailor Moon dug the hole for like anime fandom, and then Pokemon pushed me right in there. And then I collected all the cards. Like my mom wouldn't buy them growing up just because we were kind of poor. So like we couldn't just go to the store and get them. But what we did was I'd go to the flea market with my grandma, and she bought me like these bootleg cards, like a giant one of those like padded Charmander folders that you'd keep them in, like the little like Trapper Keeper type things. And she bought me a whole bunch of those. And I thought they were awesome. Looking back, I'm pretty sure the majority of those were like not real Pokemon cards. But I will say this, James, from first grade, I remember that you stole my Snorlax card, and I also remember that I punched you for it, and I do not take it back.
Wow. Got him.
Yeah, because that one was real. Like, that one was actually a Christmas present, and it was my first, like, actual deck. So, yeah, first grader. Yeah.
I'm a little confused by this whole thing.
Why?
Between bootleg and you punching a kid.
It was little me punching a kid. It wasn't like me punching a kid. It was little Kate realizing that somebody had stole something from her and then punching him, to which didn't help my case because then the teacher let him keep the card because I punched him.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's messed up.
Just
Should've hit him
rewarding,
again, then.
just rewarding thievery here.
Oh, now we're getting into it.
I love Snorlax, guys. Okay, like I'll cut all that out, but like seriously, that really made me mad. It was holographic and everything.
Back in my day.
Back.
I bought bootlegs.
I did.
I bought bootlegs.
They were cool because I thought they were really cool because they were all in Japanese. So I thought that they were the best. They were the most authentic and awesome Pokemon experience in the world. When looking back on them, like Ascent for a card.
They probably drew stick figures on them.
They did not. They did not. They might have, but I thought it was like I felt like I had a truly immersive like Pokemon experience, but they were probably all fake.
Hey, I'm pretty sure it was great and you had a good time with
I
it.
did. As a kid, I loved it.
That's all that matters.
Adult me slightly jaded.
So is Snorlax your favorite Pokemon?
No, Snorlax is not my favorite Pokemon, actually. I think he's the cutest Pokemon. But my favorite Pokemon is actually Gyarados, because he comes from, like, the most useless Pokemon in existence. Like, the Magikarp Gyarados evolution's probably my favorite thing. And then I just really like Psychic-type Pokemon, so I really like Abra and Abra's evolutions. But Snorlax is, like, the cutest for me. So.
I can see that. For me, so I started with Pokemon by watching the show first. It was like my Saturday show on WB for like the longest time. Between like that and like Fox Kids, when it would like swap whatever, or like licensing and things like that. And then watched the show. I've probably seen all of the episodes, like the first like 3 seasons, like all the way up through like the Johto League, and then I kind of like grew out of it a little bit. Seen a lot of the early movies. The first game, really, like, honestly, like a lot like Matt, kind of just in reverse. Like I had Pokemon Blue first, and then we moved to New Orleans from El Paso, which is like a 27-hour drive, and then I lost Pokemon Blue somehow, like in a hotel. But now I have Pokemon Red, and I don't really remember how I got it.
I think you stole
But
my
I still
red.
have it.
I think that's
I think you stole my blue. So I really don't know how that happened. And I played Pokemon. I played that one. Then I had Silver. Then I had Crystal. And then I found out what emulators were. So I never bought another Pokemon game ever again because I knew I could just get it off the internet. And like Matt, I had a lot of the 64 games. So I had Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2. And then when I got my GameCube, I had Pokemon Coliseum. I still think they're like some of the best party games out there, to be honest. And when I was little, I was lucky enough that I nudged my parents into like really, really liking Pokemon. And since they had the little money we spent it all on Pokemon cards, like going to like the Pokemon card shops every week. And that's where like all of our money went. So I had a huge collection, and so did they. And even to this day, we a lot of us have our Pokemon cards. So when family comes in town, like during like the week of the wedding, my uncle came in town and he brought like all of his old school Pokemon cards. So we just like made decks and played each other like the old days. So it's been a pretty big part of my family. Like I remember like as a kid watching my dad like over his shoulder playing Pokemon Crystal. And yeah, so it's always been a really big part of my family and one of my favorite fandoms for sure. My favorite Pokemon has always been and will always be Charizard. Mainly because of the show and just because I think he's, the OG dragon, like just badass. And he's always been my favorite for sure. And that's my interaction with Pokemon. Just a little bit.
just a little bit of fandom.
Yeah. Admittedly, and you'll kind of get it while we go through the thing, like I haven't played any of the newer games just because it's kind of like a back in my day kind of thing. And just they kind of like just change stuff, and these Pokemon don't look as cool as the old school Pokemon. They kind of look too cute, and I don't like it. I need my Growlithes looking cute but also fierce. Get evolve into like badass Arcanines and stuff, and that's just not how like Pokemon are anymore.
I'll totally say, as somebody who has like actively talked about loving cute things, I hate a lot of these new Pokemon for that reason.
Yeah,
they don't feel
a lot
real.
Of them I don't like. It's just too cute now.
They don't feel real.
Yeah.
Like, and
they ran out of actual animals to base them off of, so they started making up like cloud stuff, which I'm not a huge fan of. But yeah, that's me. So y'all ready to get into it? We're going to go through a real quick brief history of all the stuff. It's going to take a little bit. I apologize, but once I was going through the notes, like there's a lot of stuff for Pokemon, like a lot of stuff. So we're going to go through it real quick, and we're going to be the Very Bits podcast. Like no one ever was. All right, so we start. So the Pokemon Company is a Japanese consortium between Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures. The franchise is copyrighted by all three companies, but Nintendo is the sole owner of the trademark. And the franchise was created in 1995. And for those of you who do not know Pokemon or like the basis of it and you're living under a rock, it is centered on fictional creatures called Pokemon. In Japan, they're called pocket monsters, but we get them called Pokemon here in the States and basically everywhere else, which humans known as Pokemon trainers catch, train, and battle their Pokemon for sport. And like reading that, it really does sound like they're just dogfighting a lot of the times, and some trainers do. And it kind of is for a lot of it. But
Childhood is
Pokemon do help
ruined
build
by this.
stuff and take care of things, and they're like a lot of harmony of Pokemon, and they're basically pets, but just cooler.
yeah, no, my childhood isn't ruined by this. My childhood was ruined by realizing that people probably eat Pokemon. That's how my childhood.
They definitely do. There's definitely a scene in like the
Yep.
original show where they show like a Magikarp sliced up.
Yep.
Yeah, they definitely eat them for sure.
Yep.
Why would they not?
Because they wouldn't, and
They
hurts.
talk kind of, and it's weird. So the franchise began as a pair of video games for the original Game Boy that were developed by Game Freak and published by Nintendo. These are Red and Blue, the original games that Matt and myself had. And now it turned into past video games. It went to trading cards, and anime, movies, comic books, and toys. Currently, Pokemon is the second best. I think it's like three officially. I think it's like Mario, Sonic, and then Pokemon in terms of like video game selling. but it's the highest grossing media franchise of all time by like a whole bunch, and we'll get into the numbers here in just a second. Like it beats out like everything. Like it beats out Star Wars by like billions of dollars. It's nuts. Like a huge franchise. So on the original Game Boy, Pokemon started off with 151 Pokemon. Now they're in Generation 7 with over 800 Pokemon.
So I'm going to jump in just to say and put this right on the table and get my biases out. My bias out. Not my biases. I have multiple. My bias is I do not acknowledge anything after 151. That is not for me. There are only 151. That is my life. Get off my lawn.
Generation 2 Pokemon are some of like the coolest, I think. It's after like 3 that I get a little lost. So I'm like, yeah, I guess those are okay. Like if you gave me a test on naming all up through like Generation 3, I could probably do it, but it might get a little muddled in the third one. But I really like the second generation just because Pokemon Silver, Silver, Gold, and like Crystal were really good games.
Yeah, I didn't mind Gold and Silver. I have played those.
Yeah. And their legendary Pokemon are amazing. Like the three cats.
I just didn't
Kate,
I just didn't play the games. So like for me, like this is the extent of my cards, my anime, my everything.
I don't even know if you had real cards.
That's fair.
You know what? When I got older, I bought my own real cards. Thank you, because by that time I was saving up money to buy Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and I also would buy a pack of Pokemon cards. Thank you.
So these generations are roughly chronologically divided by their release. So every several years, when an official sequel of the main Pokemon game on the handheld is released, it features new Pokemon characters, game concepts, and the sequels are usually considered a new generation of the Pokemon franchise. So there's 7 different, sets of games out there, and they now total over 800 Pokemon. So I'd probably say about half of those I probably wouldn't know today if I went back and like played any of the games. So when Pokemon first came onto the scene in the 90s, it absolutely exploded in popularity. So in 1995, the games came out, and then immediately got picked up as an anime in 1997. It's now at almost 1,000 episodes, and it basically follows Ash, who is kind of like the pseudo red character from like the games that you play, and Pikachu on their quest to be the very best, like no one ever was.
We need to have
it was shown.
Listeners, we're at this point. You should be keeping a counter of how many times Adrian works this into the conversation.
It's going to happen a whole bunch. I think it's one of the best theme songs ever made. It was played in over 98 countries, so it's been dubbed a whole bunch in almost like any language you can think of. And I think one of the coolest, I guess not coolest now that I think about it, like, I don't know if you remember this episode particular, Kate, but the Cyber Soldier Porygon episode that had a bunch of flashing, it caused like over like 600 seizures or something like that in China, and they had to like change the episode for its release here. So just a little factual knowledge for how much Japan did not care about flashy lights.
So would it be blasphemy if I said I've watched like Digimon, but I've never watched any of the Pokemon?
No, I don't think it would be.
I don't think it would be. I think I like Pokemon better because I think it was first, but I think there's like I think it's like a Marvel versus DC kind of thing with, well, for a lot of people, Pokemon versus Digimon.
I don't think it's that toxic, but yeah.
Hey, it can be. Let's put up a poll after this, and we'll see how toxic
poll
it gets.
Incoming. No, I will say this. I have an emotional connection to Pokemon, but when I'm like older, looking back and watching stuff, I watched Digimon easier when that stuff was on Netflix and stuff. But I have like an emotional like. There's a special place for my heart for Pokemon and that Pokérap, because come on now,
the Pokérap is dope. Yeah. Not only do they have the best intros, they had some of the best ending songs of like
before
anything.
Everybody knowing all the words to "Lose Yourself" by Eminem, they knew the words to the Pokemon rap.
Yeah. Oh man, you're gonna have me singing the whole thing. So quickly moving on before I get into singing that. So it also has a lot of movies. Currently, it has 20 from 1998 to this recent movie that came out this year. a few weeks ago. So Pokemon, the first movie itself, and all of these rankings are going to come from Box Office Mojo. It's ranked number 1 in anime adaptation, ranked number 5 in TV adaptation, and number 4 in video game movie adaptation. I agree with all of these. Pokemon, the first movie, is actually like my number 1 video game movie out there. It's a little hard to like talk about it compared to like Tomb Raider and things like that because they're live action. But I do think the Pokemon first movie really does like show the video game aspect of it really well, and also has like some of the most emotional. It's definitely one of the most emotional movies I've ever seen, and literally embodies the but why those that I'm going to talk about later for the franchise. Like I watch it at least once a year, and I cry every time.
I cried a whole bunch when I first watched. I don't cry now, but I definitely get really emotional, and I know what's coming, and it makes me like, I don't know. I think it did a really like the series did a really good job of showing Ash's the series did a good job of showing the bonds between a trainer and their Pokemon, but I think the movie for me really solidified it because you saw it from the Pokemon side, not just the trainer side. And that for me was really like it was really important, and that's why it hurts my soul that people eat Pokemon.
So over all these years, has Ash aged at all?
No.
No. And there are some theories on it, and we'll talk about it a little bit later because there are a few theories on like why he doesn't age, and it's kind of crazy because especially with his new movie, I don't know like how canon this new movie is. So the most recent movie is Pokemon, the movie I Choose You, which basically covers some of the most iconic moments from the first season of Pokemon, and one moment that I wish I could unsee. But we'll talk about that in the but why those at length because I did see the movie today finally because it came out on Disney XD and DVR is great. So I did see the movie, and we'll talk a little bit about my feelings about it in one of the why those.
I will say this. I need you to convince me to watch it, because at this point, I don't want people touching my things.
We'll talk about it. So it's also been in the comic books as a manga. At me, if I said it wrong, I don't care. It was released basically in around the same time that all this stuff is coming out, so in 1997. And like that. The manga gets pretty dark. Like, there's legit Arbok getting, like, cut in half in some of these editions, so it does get a lot darker than the TV show or the books or the video game. So if you want to see some dark stuff for Pokemon, go catch up on those. There's not a whole bunch of issues, but it does get pretty dark.
I will say this, none of that should be surprising because, like, all the Yu-Gi-Oh stuff, people die at the end of Yu-Gi-Oh battles. Like, legit die, get cut in half by saw blades. I'm not surprised by any of this.
Yeah. And just because it's something that we've talked about in a few different episodes, there is a Pokemon musical that ran at the end of 2000 into 2001. I put that in there just for you, Kate. Pokemon Live, the Pokemon musical.
I want to know how many animes get at musical adaptations, because I know Bleach has one too, and I would put money that Naruto has one as well.
There's actually quite a bit.
I don't doubt it.
There's actually, when you look at a lot of stuff, there's musicals for a lot of things that people don't realize. If you just go basically Google your favorite fandoms and look, I can almost guarantee probably 60 to 70% of them, I would bet, have a musical. I would put that number on it.
I'm throwing this out here into the ether, out into the listeners. If somebody wants to come and do like a side series where all we do is review anime adapted musicals, I'm totally down. Send me a DM. I got you.
Then we have the trading card game that started in 1999 that is still widely popular today. Like, as the games update, so do all the Pokemon cards. Like I said in the beginning, this is what got me into trading card games. Like, this is what got me into Yu-Gi-Oh! This is why I like games like Hearthstone to this day, because of Pokemon as a kid. And like I said, I still play with my family, on holidays and stuff like that. So we're still pretty into it.
I got my mom to take me to, there was this comic book shop in San Antonio called Alien Worlds, and I would get her to take me to it on Saturday so I could watch people just play each other. Like, I wouldn't do anything. All I would do is just, like, clutch my little Charmander binder and watch people play Pokemon. And it was awesome. It was really great. And that's probably why I watch a lot of Twitch games now.
I wish you would have played. We would have found out exactly how well
your
bootleg cards would have done.
Shut up. Not all of them were bootleg, just most of them.
So just like her,
And then-
just like Hearthstone.
Oh, no, go for
just
it.
like Hearthstone, I like card trading games, but I don't actually like carrying the cards. So I like playing the Pokemon video games because I had the Pokemon without having to like carry the cards. I like Hearthstone because I don't need the cards.
I mean, as you know, I'm a hoarder, so I love collecting cards.
I don't even like buying video games at the store anymore. Just give me my digital copy.
Like, I know that this is totally not... This is trading card related, but you should be very happy that you met me after I sold all my Yu-Gi-Oh cards, because I had, like, 10 boxes of those things. Like, bank boxes of Yu-Gi-Oh cards.
That's why when they handed us the Magic the Gathering cards way back in the day at one of the South by Southwest, I was like, no, take these away from me. I don't want them. This is bad for my wallet. Yeah, exactly. So, and then finally, we have the video games. So, obviously, like the main games are the handheld video games on the Game Boy, and then now the DS. And it's obviously the most popular because that's where Pokemon got started. It does have a few games in the consoles in the 90s and early 2000s. So, like I mentioned before, Pokemon Stadium 1 and 2 on the N64, and Pokemon Coliseum on the GameCube. Pokemon Snap on the N64 and Hey You Pikachu on the N64 are probably like the most popular ones on the console games. And then there's lots of characters in Super Smash Brothers from Pokemon. And then, of course, the wide, kind of flash in the pan. I guess it's picking back up and now again, but Pokemon Go that recently came out last year is kind of like the next big thing in the Pokemon video game world. Yeah. And we'll talk about like its popularity.
I do have a question, like what genre does the Pokemon games fall into?
Japanese RPG.
Okay.
Or at least that's the way how I've always taken them. And
yeah, like for the handhelds, they're all RPG. Like it says RPG on all of the things. Pokemon Stadium, I don't know if you played
I played
or
Pokemon
Coliseum.
Stadium. That I have played, yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah. That's more of like kind of, the games on like a console, and then you have all of like the Mario Party aspects that I really, really liked because it had Pokemon instead of, Mario taking up all the screen.
So as much as I liked the game and everything, I didn't buy it because I really liked Pokemon. I bought it because I could get like creatures and do a Japanese RPG style type game. Honestly, that was the only reason it was fun. They could have been something totally different. They could have given me like, instead of Pokemon, other various creatures, and I'd have been totally happy with it.
I need the Pokemon. Pokemon Snap was awesome. I don't know if y'all played Pokemon Snap or Hey You Pikachu, but that game was great.
That's the one where you just drove around and
mainly
took
because
pictures?
I have
so
one of the
Pokemon Go before
the
Pokemon Go.
No, it was
exactly.
That was the one where you went around and took pictures. Am I correct?
Yeah, and you had to like snap the pictures of the Pokemon like at just the right second. That was the
biggest like fraud of money
it.
ever. Like there was no point to buy that game.
I had a lot of fun, and you can't judge my fun based on your fun.
For like the first.
And I have a Pokemon N64, so it was even better because I put the game into Pikachu and I snapped pictures of Pikachu. So get off my lawn, mister.
No, shouldn't you be saying let me play on your lawn, mister?
No, because it's my game first, and I have more experience with it. That's why. So you get off my lawn, Matt. Because you stole my Pokemon Blue game. All right. We're making good time. You want to get in some of the why those?
Yes. I mean, that is the name of the podcast.
All right. This is accurate. This is accurate. I can just sing the Pokemon theme songs for the rest of the podcast.
So long as it's on record, go for it. I need some.
So the first but why though?
Actual like theme song splicing, like in Game of Thrones, that needs to happen.
Hey, it might happen. We'll see. So the first but why, though, is that Pokemon is one of the most popular franchises of all time, like very, very easily, in terms of, media, in terms of popularity, across like all of its mediums. So it's the highest grossing media franchise of all time. As of March 2017, it has grossed $55.15 billion of revenue. For perspective, Star Wars comes in second on that list that I found at $42 billion as of December 2015. So it's made a bunch of money since 1995.
I mean, topping Star Wars is just a feat in and of itself, but to just completely smash Star Wars.
Yeah, especially considering it's only been out, since 1995, and Star Wars has been a thing since, the 70s. So it's a huge, huge feat.
Inflation.
Like we said before, it's one of the top videos.
Is that adjusted for inflation?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure even adjusted with inflation, over $10 billion is still a lot of
Yeah,
money.
because I would assume if both numbers are coming from this time, then that's going to take inflation into account because it's judging it on their current sales, if that makes sense. Like, it's up to date.
It doesn't matter. If I bought something for $10 in 1970 and it costs $170 now.
Well, I know, but like that money doesn't go to the people making Star Wars. It goes to whoever has that collectible.
True.
What do you mean?
If you bought something for $1 and sold it, like that money doesn't go to Disney now.
Oh, you're talking about we're talking about
goes to you.
revenue based on
No,
everything?
like because you said you
Yeah, like company
'cause
revenue.
You said that if you bought something for $10, but then now you buy it for $170. Well, then that $170 doesn't go to Disney or Star Wars. It goes to whoever was selling that $10 item.
No. I'm talking about if you bought something from Star Wars Company in 1970 for $10, and then you bought something from Star Wars Company now for $100, or from Pokemon now for $170.
The only thing that I would say, like even with inflation, if you just take Star Wars from the prequels, like that is really when they just marketed the crap out of everything, and then they exploded on doing all these spin-off things, like if that makes sense. Like, so even if you just take that,
Right.
like the height of that type of marketing, I think we're in it now, but like it's not like they did marketing in the 70s, but I don't think it was anywhere close to what they were doing when the prequels came out.
I think I'm just impressed by this because I guess knowing a
You
lot.
don't sound impressed.
Well, I'm impressed by this because, one, I mean, I would say even though inflation, but time-wise. But two, I guess knowing a bunch of people that like Pokemon and knowing a bunch of people that like Star Wars, people who like Pokemon buy things that are good, but I feel like people that buy Star Wars, I can slap a Star Wars sticker on anything and they'll buy it.
Oh my God! This is why you're not going to be on the Star Wars episodes, Matt. Get out of here! Get off my lawn!
I mean, he's not wrong though.
You stab a sticker on either of these, and I'll probably go buy it. So.
I mean, Ray's face is on like soup cans now. But I would totally buy soup if they were like little Pokemon.
You just said you didn't want people to eat
like-
Pokemon.
Why did you just do that to me?
Could be a can of carp. Megacarp ravioli.
Oh God! Chicken of the
Shut
Magikarp. And we've referenced IGN's top 100 animated series on the podcast a few times. The Indigo series, that original Pokemon's the Indigo League, that original Pokemon
so I was
season, ranks 70 in in that top 100 animated series list. Choosing your first Pokemon is ranked 23rd on IGN's top 100 video game moments, and I think it's accurate. It's one of my favorite moments in any video game. Even though I always choose the fire Pokemon, it's still like as a kid, I can remember it being a very big
Definitely a
moment
big
for me.
moment. Can you give me at least like another example of some of those moments? I just wonder what they actually had on there.
I don't have the thing pulled up anymore.
I just kind of wanted to know because I do find that that is a very big moment. So I was kind of wondering.
What was it? I know I had to pull it up too, but my computer shut down because I knew you were gonna ask. So I had it pulled up.
You know, this
Hold
is
on.
a great time to say, if you like access to our research notes, go ahead and subscribe to us on Patreon, where everybody should be including links to their lists. Adrian.
Oh, well, I mean, they only have to go through like 2 pages of notes for me, so.
Yeah, mine's all bullet points.
I'm sorry that I believe in footnoting and making sure they see where all the information comes from.
I feel like you just want them to read
What are
something.
you?
I do.
What are you described as? Or scholar? I'm
you're
not.
you're in grad school, and Matt's already left it. So neither of y'all have excuses.
I'm in grad school for education, not religious studies or, stuff that requires me to do a lot of work. I'm at group plants. So on this list, Ariath's Death from Final Fantasy is number 1. Psycho Mantis from Metal Gear Solid is number 2.
Ooh.
And then Pulling the Sword from the Stone in Ocarina of Time is number 3.
So is there any that are not Japanese?
Probably not.
Probably not, to be honest. I mean, they do know how to tell a good story.
Next episode, Japanese games. Do they do anything that isn't memorable?
And then we can talk about, just recently in terms of popular franchises, Pokemon Go, when it was, at its height and wasn't, having all of its problems, had over 65 million people actively playing it all across the world, which was absolutely insane. I know when I go to Japan in a few months, I'm definitely going to be logging back in so I can go catch Pokemon in Japan. So still widely popular, and it's been like that with kind of without a dip. I think they've had a dip in sales these last couple of years, but it was like rising for just like the longest time. And I'm not really sure if it's going anywhere anytime soon, to be honest. I think they're just gonna keep popping them out until the cows come home, or until the toros come home, I guess. Who's the next, or like the milk tanks come home.
I think,
so
like,
go for it.
I was like, I remember Pokemon Go kind of being annoyed by it at first because there were so many people everywhere, and I was like, you're not in this bar to drink. Go away. Why are you? And then everybody was like marketing. It was a really great marketing tool because everybody was marketing themselves as a Pokestop, as a lure, like all that stuff. So it was smart, and it was really smart of those places to do it. And I think that, I don't know, I didn't like it, and then I started playing it, and then I was really obsessed with it for a little while, and I did it while we were on a road trip through Arizona and stuff. And yeah, I can totally understand how people get obsessed, and if you don't do it in Japan, you're totally not having a full experience.
Yeah, exactly. Because there's only some Pokemon you can only catch in Japan, so I'm hyped for it.
Because every country has that, right? Every country has a different special Pokemon.
Exactly, yeah. And then kind of like on the same line, so if...
I was like, the best part of Pokemon Go was watching now people getting mad about Pokemon Go, about all the people being in the parks. So it's like, we want people to go outside and be in a park, but now we're mad because there's just people out in the park trying to catch Pokemon.
I remember going to the Capitol in Austin, and there was, like, when Pokemon Go first came out, and it was actually insane how many people were out there. It was pretty ridiculous. So I thought it was awesome, though, because there was all kinds of different people out there, which kind of leads me to my next point and my next but why, though. So if you heard our Transformers episode, one of the reasons I think Transformers is so popular and such a staple in pop culture is because it transcends generations. Like, there are people all over who like Transformers in various age groups, and Pokemon is a lot of the same thing. So on the terms of Pokemon Go, everyone from my smallest cousins to literally my grandma played Pokemon Go. I think my grandma might be the highest level out of all of the entire family. She loves it. She likes going like out and like walking around and stuff. So Pokemon Go was wildly popular across all generations. And like when I went to the park that day, there was people like all over, every age group was out there playing Pokemon Go during that time. For the handheld games, today, the average age group is 19 to 24. The average Pokemon Go player last year was a 25-year-old
Hey, that's
woman.
That's my demographic.
Yeah, exactly. And then for both of those groups, the second highest age group is less than 17. For the trading card games, it's dominated by the less than 17 group.
Holy crap!
And you
I'm
can kind of
actually
see
really surprised by that because I think
I'm not, because I have a
Okay.
story for this. If you look at the World Championship for the trading card games, there's actually two divisions specifically for younger kids. So there's the juniors, which is the under 10 division. There is the senior, which is the 11 to 14 age group. And then there's the masters, which is age 15 plus. And this doesn't surprise me at all, because a few years ago, when we kind of like got back into playing Pokemon again with each other, I was in Albuquerque and my uncle has a whole bunch of cards. So we were like, oh, well, let's go take our Pokemon cards to a local comic book shop and see how we do at one of those days, like you mentioned earlier, Kate. And it's just like a whole nother game now. Like Pokemon like just have naturally like 100 hit points. And I was like, what is this, you dang kids? Because all the people that we played against and who all wrecked us were all kids. Like there weren't any adults there playing Pokemon. It was all kids. So I'm not surprised that Pokemon is still, till this day, still dominated by kids. Yeah, I just don't understand how.
Yeah, I mean, I think that just having those types of divisions might be because I think Magic, like, I think it's structured to benefit kids playing it. Because like 15 plus, like that's a huge thing, especially seeing like the generations that grew up with this. You know, or I guess not too many generations, but like there should be a specific one for like you were making memories when that first episode aired. You know, like I feel like it's really interesting because I know with other trading card games, even as they've changed and gotten completely different, like I think Yu-Gi-Oh still has a pretty dominant like older base. I could be wrong, but I feel like
I mean, I think some of it might just come from like the like how Yu-Gi-Oh, I think Yu-Gi-Oh still goes on to this day, but it's not the original characters, whereas like Pokemon is still just Ash. So like kids watching Pokemon today are still getting the same experience more or less than like we got when we were kids. So it might be easier for them to like still understand Pokemon. It might be easier for like parents now to like tell their kids like, hey, look, this is Ash and this is what Pokemon is. But the game has totally changed. So you can still see that even though some of like the age groups have shifted in like the handheld games, like it's still dominated by kids. And like I said, my grandma is still the highest level in Pokemon Go out of all of us, and I don't know how. She just loves that game so much.
I think I will say too, like one of the really cool things, like specifically about like card games and playing them when you're younger, like it's kind of good that it is kids, because like the type of like thought, it's kind of like playing chess and developing like that part of your brain, only you also use math and you have to like do that all fairly quickly. So I mean, as a learning tool, I think that like that's just really good. Like for pedagogical purposes, there should be Pokemon in every classroom.
Trading card games for everybody. And I think more so to kind of get that point home of how it's definitely, we're at the point where they're going back and retelling stuff from season 1 when I was a kid, and you can see that from the newest movie, Pokemon, I Choose You. And I think a lot of the reasons why they're doing it is just because, they're in season 20, and a lot of the marketing for the movie was like, have you ever seen or like, do you know the story of when Ash and Pikachu first met? And when I saw that commercial, I was like, yes, obviously. But thinking back to it, like a lot of kids probably have never seen that first season of Pokemon. So them going back and doing it, I think is kind of shows that they're still willing to go back and show kids, this is kind of more or less how it went. I think that most older people who kind of grew up on the first season are going to either hate it or kind of be meh about it.
I haven't even watched it, and I'm like, stop touching my things.
So, okay. So I'll tell you what they kind of do, and then I'll give you my feelings on it. So basically, they go through a lot of the season, like most of the first season of Pokemon, in kind of like a very quick pace thing. So you go through some of like the biggest moments in Pokemon. You have Ash and Pikachu saving Ash from the Spearow moment. You have Ash taking care of Charmander, who got abandoned by his trainer, and you also have Ash letting his Butterfree go, which are some of like the most iconic moments from that first season. But instead of like Brock and Misty and Gary kind of makes like a kind of like short cameo at the beginning, but you really don't have him. You have these two new people, and then this other villain guy, who's kind of his kind of like his rival. And then
Why did they get rid of them?
I think just because it's kind of like kids aren't. It's like I think it's too much to ask. I think it's too much to explain like how Misty and Brock got there. I think it's much easier for them to be like, oh hey, person, we have the same interest. Let's go. Like it's hard for them to go back and explain why Brock left his family and how he's like. And then it's kind of like hard to explain Misty going through, making her leave the gym, being like the youngest sister. I think it's just too much to do in the movie. And I think the Gary thing, would just be too much to put in as well. It translates fine. It's not like a huge deal because they're not really a big part of the show, like the thing anyway. The rival kind of is, but that guy's a total dick, and Gary's like not that much of a dick for them to put Gary in that role. Like they make him like the actual like villain kind of in the thing, and I don't think Gary deserves that kind of treatment in it. I think overall it's not terrible. It really isn't terrible. Like I think they do a good job of in like an hour and a half movie kind of blowing through a lot of these moments. Like they put in the original theme song to kind of like speed stuff up. So like as the original theme song is going on, you have like him catching, him bonding with Pikachu, him, catching Caterpie for the first time and things like that, and a lot of bonding moments. Not gonna lie, I got a little emotional watching that part because I'm like as it's going on, I'm thinking about all of like the episodes I used to watch going through that. The big moments like the Charmander thing and the Ash letting Butterfree thing aren't as powerful as they are in the show. I think just because there's more time to kind of like go through it and things like that. But I think there's still iconic moments. I still think, kids will get things out of it. There are some like other emotional moments in it too. Like we're watching it and there's this moment like where one of his new companions is going back to retell the story about a Pokemon that he grew up with as a kid. And as a kid, he goes into the snow and this Pokemon comes to go find him. And while we're watching, I'm telling Stefani, like, are they really going to show this Pokemon snuggle up with him for warmth and die while like during the storm? And Stefani's like, no, they're not going to do that. And then it happens and Stefani cried. And it's a pretty emotional scene, to be honest. And there's some other stuff where like Ash kind of like trying to like redo the moment in Pokemon the first movie where like Ash dies and Pikachu's crying, and it really does come across pretty good because Pikachu is like very emotional and he just like goes like ape shit and like wrecks stuff, which is kind of cool. But Pikachu talking is complete garbage, and I really, really don't like that. In context of the movie, it kind of makes sense because he just kind of takes like 7 hyper beams to the face and is probably like concussed and like imagining things. Like Pikachu, and like after that he like basically dies. So like in the context of the movie, I guess it makes sense, but I just don't think it's very necessary. At the heart, I think it's kind of hard to ask kids to go have kids watch like 200 episodes of the original Pokemon, especially with like the animation style that they have today, because the animation style now and the old school animation style are completely different. And this, I will say, this movie did have some cool like animation in it, like Charizard like doing seismic tosses in like HD. Is
like,
actually the shit.
I don't know. I haven't seen the movie, but I think just on that sentiment, I don't think it is, mostly because a lot of kids now are already growing up in that constantly watching things and streaming things like mentality. So if you want to watch it, you'll watch it. And when it comes to animation, I think they will. Just because my 6-year-old cousin, I was watching the original Sailor Moon, so like with the black borders, because it's not widescreen, it's full screen. The animation is really crappy, and she saw a couple episodes, and then she watched she went and she watched all the original Sailor Moons. Like if you want to do that,
I think it's different because there's no like new Sailor Moons. Like she has nothing to compare that to. There's like actual seasons of Pokemon that are coming out like new like every week. Like I think it's just too confusing to ask kids to do it.
I just don't
and
think
they're just too used
because,
to
like people obsess over things. Like fandom is real, and the same way we sat through watching those when they were happening. If you have more of it, you're gonna go through whatever you can to watch it, especially when it's accessible.
I don't think so.
I don't think there's any reason for them to, because they already have it now. Like there's no reason for them to go back and watch it when they're already having this continuity.
Then why make the movie?
Of
like
what
if
Ash...
like
to go back and bridge
I
the
just
gap,
don't think they
really.
need to, though. Like, if you already know people are going to go back and watch it, and you've already changed this story to, like, me, like, the reason I don't watch the new like, Pokemon stuff is because it's unrecognizable to me.
Well,
And
the
so
old
I
stuff
don't
to
go
them is
watch it.
unrecognizable
I know,
to
and so
them.
there's no point to watch
Exactly,
it, and there's no
that's the
point
point,
that
right?
you have to bridge that. You
Exactly.
don't have to bridge that
But
gap.
that's-
You don't have to make a movie like that. And
Exactly,
you don't have to remake
exactly
shit. Get
what
off
you
my
said.
lawn.
Like, it's unwatchable. Exactly like what you said. Like, it's unwatchable and doesn't relate to you. Is the exact reason why a kid wouldn't go back and watch it. Just reverse. Like, there's no reason for them to go watch it if they already have Pokemon that's relatable to them. Like, they're not going to go back and watch stuff. Not only does it like it bridge the gap for like kids, like as someone who isn't familiar with some of these Pokemon and isn't familiar with some of these regions, I'm like, oh, okay, I guess that's cool. That like there's this like Machamp looking fire Pokemon who is dope looking and like basically shoots fire out of his wiener, and it's amazing. It's like he has like this big belt on and he shoots like flamethrowers out of like his belt, but it looks like he shoots. Exactly, but I think it bridges the gap both ways, to be honest. Because the animation style is great, and like you say that, but like go ask. I think the majority of kids are not going to want to watch. That's why like the majority of kids don't think that like the 90s cartoons that we grew up with, like Hey Arnold and things like that. Like go watch any like what's the people who do it, like kids watch blank, or like elderly people watch blank and stuff like that. I watched one like where they were watching 90s cartoons, and overall they're like, this looks so old and things like that. But if you give it two of them in something big and colorful and like voices that they can relate to, I think it's just easier just to do it that way.
Like, I really don't see the point.
I can see the point. I just don't think people are going to go back and watch 20 seasons of that. And plus, with depending, like I said, the animation style, trying to watch some of those shows that even movies that I enjoyed in the 90s can be hard. Because the animation and like even before really, I guess, good or even any CGI, some of that stuff is just hard to watch.
I don't know. I guess I just think kids are simple.
Well, they are.
They are simple.
So they're
simple. That's why all of their shows are 15 minutes long and not 30 minutes anymore, because they want instant gratification. The first season of Pokemon has like 87 episodes. Like, these kids are not used to watching 87 episodes of anything, let alone at 30 minutes a pop. They're used to 15-minute shows.
Yeah, so if you're a kid and you basically have, let's say, 3 hours to watch Pokemon a week, if you try to simulate that through about 20 seasons of Pokemon, you might be about 3 years behind by the time you even finish.
I guess I just don't care.
Yeah.
Like, I think I just genuinely, like, it's that get off my lawn mentality, and I kind of don't care. Like, they have something that is still evolving with them. They have over 800 Pokemon. Like,
okay, well, I guess
it's
the better
obviously
question is,
something
where do you
different
find
now.
1 through 20 seasons then?
They had Indigo League on Netflix. I don't know if it's
where
still
do you get
there,
the
but
new
it was.
stuff?
Huh?
Where's the new stuff?
Oh, that shit's on cable, I think.
I think you're more likely to get a kid to watch cable TV than you are Netflix.
My point is that we're 20 years away from when it first came out, and most kids I work with at a school were born in 2000 probably have no recognition of the original Pokemon, series.
They might not even know what a Game Boy is.
Going back and,
I think I just don't
so I'm
care
okay
about
with
kids.
them going back and
I think
re-showing it just
ultimately
because
that's what it is.
It's not even kids. Like, what do you define as a kid? Like, some of these, the average age group for the thing is like, 14, 15. Like, those are teenagers at this point. Like, they aren't going to go back and watch it if they're like, if those Pokemon aren't even in circulation for the games that they're playing. You know what I mean? So it's easier just to give them an hour-and-a-half movie, be like, oh, okay, this is where Pikachu came from. Okay, let me go back to my new series. It's emotional. I think it's a solid 6 out of 10. It's like no Pokemon the first movie, but I'm glad I watched it. I thought it was pretty cool. There were some emotional moments in there for me, and really cool animation. And then to move on from that, from the lawn, to kind of also explain how it kind of transcends generations or just transcends age groups, is that they release enhanced remakes of previous games. So, for example, Fire Red and Leaf Green are basically, HD remasterings of the red version and green version from back in the day. Heart Gold and Soul Silver are remakes of Gold and Silver. And Omega Ruby and Omega Sapphire are remakes of Ruby and Sapphire. So even if you didn't grow up playing, red or green, you can go, kids, a few years ago could have went back and played red and green, again, like I said before, kind of like in a more updated fashion that are more in line with the times. And
I
still
think
go
it's
through
just
and play
like
those games
when they remake games, and they remake a lot of the movies, and they just enhance all the graphics and animation type stuff.
And I don't think that's necessary either.
Except they did it in 20 years. They did it in an hour and a half.
Yeah, I like them. I think Fire Red. I think Fire Red is great. I think it improved on like a lot of the stuff that are wrong with Red, like the original game. So
I mean, I also
same
hate
thing
like
with
all the
Heart
Resident
Gold.
Evil remasters and re-releases. Like, I just don't like re-releasing stuff.
At a
Unless
certain
it's,
point,
like,
the technology just becomes so outdated, animation becomes so outdated that
Oh, yeah.
to make it relevant, you have to.
Yeah, you can't ask a kid to go, "Hey, go play with this Game Boy" when they're playing like on a DS. Like they're not gonna do
Well,
it. There's no way.
I know that, but I'm just kind of like, for me, and I guess this is like Matt money grab territory, but for me, it's just kind of like they're not franchises that died and then are reinvigorating themselves by doing this. Like these are and even like throwing my favorite series, Resident Evil, into this. Like these are things that have been out and are still pumping out content, and then just remastering stuff.
I don't know. For me, it's a lot of the but why though. Like it's giving the opportunity for kids or for adults who never played it a chance to play a better version of it.
I'm more on board with them doing this than I am with like basically these stupid Star Wars movies they keep like retconning in there
God.
that are total money grabs, and they slapped a Star Wars sticker on it like Rogue One.
But it was a completely different story, and it was one we hadn't heard before. It
It
wasn't.
was totally unnecessary.
It wasn't unnecessary. It was fun. It was awesome. It was great.
Like the remakes are for people, and like the movie is for people.
Like it's not just remaking
but we knew,
shit.
I mean, I can understand where Matt's coming from because we knew,
You knew what
was
happened.
happening.
It was
Like
totally
we
unnecessary.
knew that they were going to get the plans.
I could have told you that. I didn't even have to watch the movie to tell you what happens.
But the difference is it's a different story being done. I'm just tired of remakes and reboots and all that stuff anyway, because it's like we're not getting new shit. We're getting like old stuff done in a different way or done in a new way or recasted, and we're not actually getting new stuff done.
Well, these are also coming out simultaneously with their new game, so it's not like they're just like doing this for 2 years and then coming out with a remake. They're kind of doing them, one right after another. So they're
You know how many Skyrims there are? And the game's like 5 years old.
I know that. I think that's the reason that like has me worn out on remade video games, and then just like looking at like how soon Resident Evil was releasing remakes and director's editions and stuff of their games like afterwards.
I'm on board with this. I'm not on board with Rogue One. I'll go with that. I see where they're going with this with kids. It is what it is.
I don't know, man. Fire Red and Leaf Green sold 12 million copies and has an 81% on Metacritic, so it's popular. So the next but why, though, I think is one of the most important ones, is that at the heart of Pokemon, it has strong friendship and family values, for sure. And you get this right away from the theme song. I couldn't find any list to back this up, but I really do think Pokemon, the first theme song, is one of the best theme songs ever made for cartoons ever. It is amazing. It really kind of like shows what the show is going to be about. Friendship of Pokemon, aspiring to be the best you can be while, staying true to yourself and things like that. Even like I think the second season, the first Johto song is also pretty good as well, because it kind of stays with that same thing. Not so much the other ones, because they kind of just try to rehash these two theme songs. Because at its core, Ash is just a kid who wants to be the very best, and we watch him on his journey to achieve his goals, even if he hasn't aged in 20 years. So even though he has this goal to be the very best, to be like the best Pokemon trainer, the Pokemon master, it doesn't stop him from making lasting friendships with people he meets. And you can see this from like the multiple, kind of like companions, because he usually has 2 companions that he travels with through all of these seasons, and he beats them very easily. A lot of the episodes in the show are not him battling Pokemon trainers or not him battling gyms. It's him usually helping somebody in need, whether it be, like a fire, or helping a Pokemon who's hurt, or, helping, XYZ. And his personality and his love for Pokemon rubs off on others. You can see this from basically at the end of every season, like his rival becoming like a better person. You can see that with Gary. You can see that even in like the new Pokemon movie. His just love for Pokemon and friendship usually outweighs like the people who are, might is right, or, Pokemon are only used for tools, or, abusing the Pokemon and things like that. And I really like the story of Ash. I'm using the story of Ash and not like the Pokemon games or like the manga, because you kind of get it more straightforward from these family values and these friendship values. because you kind of see him go through basically everything, because nothing comes easy to him. He loses many of the gym leaders in the first season of Pokemon. He has to face them twice, and sometimes even 3 times. He doesn't just go in there and wipe the floor with them. And he doesn't always win the tournaments, like the big, Indigo League tournaments and things like that, the Orange League tournaments. He doesn't win those all the time at face value. And not all of his Pokemon love him right away. The biggest thing is Pikachu. Pikachu hates him for the first part of that episode, and then Charizard basically doesn't give 2 shits about him, but his love for his Pokemon always wins out. So he saves Pikachu from Spearow. Then Pikachu's like, oh, this guy actually cares. Charizard, he saves Charizard from having his tail burnt out after he gets put in an ice block, and then Charizard's like, oh, this guy actually does care. So he even breaks through hard-headed Pokemon as well. And I'm taking this just from the first 3 seasons that I've watched, because you see Ash go from kind of an asshole and super childish, because he is basically 10 after all. But through all of his experiences, he does grow and become. He does grow,
even though he doesn't age.
Even though he doesn't age, he's not the same person at the end of when I stopped watching the show and that first episode of him waking up late to go get his first Pokemon. So I watched the show before I played the games, like I mentioned before. And when I played my first Pokemon game, I legit treated my Pokemon like Ash did when I caught them. And y'all can laugh if you want, but when I caught a Pokemon, I felt bad putting them into Bill's PC and just leaving them there. I was like, oh man, I gotta go get Caterpie out of the PC to go play with him, because he's gonna hate me if I don't.
I did that.
I nicked
Tamagotchi pets.
Basically, yeah. I treated them like Tamagotchi
I didn't like to
pets.
catch a lot of them. I like to have just a team, because then the rest of them just sat there.
I know, and I felt bad. I was like, why did I even do this? I don't want to catch them all. I just want my team of 6. I even nicknamed my rival after some of my closest friends, so I could actually take the rivalry serious.
Okay, I wasn't that
I took
intense.
those games super serious. I was into it, man. I was into it.
So you did
just
not have
Ash
to
is
catch
really,
them all.
Yeah, I mean, even to catch them all, you had to have friends who had the games, and not a lot of my friends.
Which,
had the games
I guess
growing
on a
up.
side note, which was kind of cool, which we didn't talk about in the video game, but the fact of the way they allowed you to trade Pokemon, the technology they used when the game first came out was hilarious compared to how it is now.
Yeah, you actually have to system link with people, and some Pokemon would only evolve if you sent them through a trade. Machoke would only evolve to Machamp if you traded him with somebody, and things like that. That was cool, and it really showed some community value.
Yeah, you actually had to go find
friendship.
real life friends who had the game, or just buy all the games,
or who had or who had the opposite game that you had, because only some Pokemon showed up in only some of the games. So you actually had to catch them all if that was one of your goals. You actually had to go out and make friends.
So I would have
Pokemon
sucked
Go
at
was a
this
thing.
game.
Then you had to get all the cords, then you had to get all the connections, and you had to put it in the right. It was definitely wasn't super
So
easy.
how expensive was this game? I'm starting to see
I'm
how
pretty sure
money
I
was
spent,
easily
I'm pretty
made.
sure if I remember correctly, which I probably might need to check, because I saved this up and it was one of the first things I ever bought as a kid, with my own money. I'm pretty sure between the game and the Game Boy Color, it cost me $202. Which may not seem like a lot of money.
Is that adjusted for inflation?
Yeah, if you adjust it for inflation, then we're looking a lot more than that. But that was probably, what, 1999? 1999, I believe, or something like that? $202? Yeah.
I have no idea. I'd have to, find somewhere of the original price of the game that we could, I don't know, we'll probably put it in the show notes.
That's just a shit. That's a
somewhere.
lot of
I just remember
equipment.
that number because of how much I had to save up for get that stupid thing.
Yeah.
Which I only bought the one game.
And then ended up with a different game.
Yes. That's the only Game Boy
And
game
then-
I had.
It's the only Game Boy game I had. I had that and a Yu-Gi-Oh game that wasn't as fun as Pokemon. So I don't even know what happened to the Yu-Gi-Oh game. And then some of these, strong family values and friendship values are going to come up in some of our fan, but why those? And I think they say it a little bit better than I can. So I'll hold off on that until we get to the end. Another big thing about Pokemon, I think why it's so popular even to this day, one of the best things about fandoms for me personally is the conversations that they spawn. And no franchise has fan theories like Pokemon has fan theories. There are literally so many.
I can agree there.
So some of them include, some of them about the Pokemon themselves. So Clefairy and Gengar being mirrors of each other, and how all that works, that, you know, how they're complete opposites. Like, that's not really stated. You know, it says that he's a shadow, but we don't really know how that works. Ghost Pokemon are just spirits of dead Pokemon. Wheezing is just a result of experiments on coughing that the Red Rocket team did. And then one of my favorites is Ditto, the Pokemon who kind of transform into stuff, is just a failed clone.
I totally buy that one.
Yeah, I buy it too. And, you know, there's so many much more of theories about the Pokemon themselves. In the games, there's always theories that one of the best one that kind of made me feel like an asshole when I was a kid is you kill your rival's Raticate in the Generation 1 game on the boat. Like, you fight. Oh, I guess Kate hasn't played the game. So, like, you're on a boat on this cruise thing, and your rival shows up, and you just beat him, and he has Eradicate. And then when you face him again a little bit later on, he doesn't. You meet him in, like, a Pokemon, like, cemetery kind of thing. And then when you battle him there, he doesn't have his Eradicate.
Oh, gosh.
So you just have to assume that you basically killed his Eradicate because he couldn't get, like... Because since he was on a boat, he couldn't get healed in time at a Pokemon Center. So you're probably an asshole, probably.
So basically, what I was always kind of wondering, I guess I never, because obviously I only played the games, is obviously Pikachu is not Pokemon number 1. So why was Pikachu chosen as like the popular Pokemon?
Just because he's Ash's Pokemon.
Well, I know, but I mean, do we understand like why that happened? Like,
because Ash. So the way, you know how you start off like the first 3 Pokemon in the first game, right? Squirtle, Bulbasaur, or Charmander. Ash wakes up late in the show, and by the time he gets there, all 3 of those Pokemon are gone, and the only Pokemon that Professor Oak has left over is Pikachu. And that's how he gets Pikachu. See, if you would have watched Pokemon I Choose You, you could have gotten that in the first 5 minutes of the movie, instead of watching a couple seasons of the first season of Pokemon. That's basically how Ash gets Pikachu, and then P's never not had Pikachu, because Pikachu refuses like to evolve and stuff, so he's always just been a staple of
it was just weird because I know the original 151, I guess I just found it interesting why they chose Pikachu out of like the other 150. Even
cute.
though they're probably about more of
That's
like,
my theory. He's cute.
He's cute. He's an electric mouse. Much cuter than an electric mouse. Another big theory that always has like a lot of debate is like what it's like inside of a Pokeball when a Pokemon goes in it. Some theories have it is it's like basically quantum theory. The Pokemon just get transformed into light, and they're just light until they come out of the Pokemon, until they come out of the Pokeball. I read something that the producer of Sun and Moon, the newest game, said it's more like a fancy hotel. I don't buy that.
Well, they want to say
like
it was
cheesy.
a prison.
Yeah.
And another theory says that they're just shrunk in the thing. I like the one about the light because it makes more sense how like the red beam thing comes out. It's like, why would they be like, what is is this a teleportation thing? When you open a Pokeball, there's nothing in there. So like, how is it a fancy hotel in there? It makes more sense for it to be light. I don't know. And then another big one that Matt mentioned earlier, like why is he young forever? There's a few theories on this. I think these are like the 2 leading ones. So one says that he's in a coma after getting struck by lightning early on in the show, and he's basically just living out his dreams in his coma, so he like never ages, because why would he age if his perception of himself is always 10?
Sounds like the
and
Harry
then
Potter
another one.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically, yeah. A lot of these are just like, oh, they're just in a coma.
Yeah. I think there's a Walking Dead one. There's a Rugrats one.
Yeah. And then, so another one is, so at the very beginning of the show, Ash sees Ho-Oh, and he's like this big rainbow bird, and the legend is like anyone who sees Ho-Oh is like promised eternal happiness. So a lot of people believe that Ash sees Ho-Oh early on, so his eternal happiness is being young forever and going on these adventures, so he doesn't age, because, you know, all he wants to do is be the very best that no one ever was. So a few different theories on like why he's that. Some of them have it like, another one has it like he dies he basically like died in a couple of the movies, and he just like reincarnates himself, or like he's like reincarnated and things like that. I think that was kind of dumb, but I like the Ho-Ho one because it makes him not be in a coma and
it's not as sad.
Exactly. Another big theory that's more or less confirmed, but we don't really get like a whole lot of information on it other than like brief interactions with some of like the NPCs. But there was a great war prior to the like person playing Pokemon. Lieutenant Surge, who's one of the Pokemon gym leaders, says when you meet him that he used to battle with Pokemon in a war, and that's kind of all you get. So a lot of fan theories have spawned off of that. One theory has Ash or Red or like whoever the person is that you're playing with in the handheld games. The reason why there's never a dad there is because the dad died in the war, and that's why you never hear too much about. That's why it's always a mom and there's never a dad there. And another theory has his dad being so that at the entrance of every gym, there's a guy who's there to give you advice about that gym, and people think that that's your dad, and he's just kind of like following you around in the background. That seems a little bit weirder than like the dad being dead, though.
All I know is all of these like fan theories seem to just be how dark can we make this happy kid show?
You killed Eradicate in the game, so that dude is legit dead. And then some of the theories have that like nuclear war being the creation of Pokemon. I guess like in some of the movies and stuff like that, I guess this isn't entirely true, but the reason why you never see, because they do make references to actual places like on our Earth and stuff. So the reason why you don't see any animals is because they're nuclear war basically, and that's what turned animals into Pokemon more or less. And that's why Professor Oak at the beginning of the game gives you a Pokedex so you can go out and find more about these new Pokemon since the war happened so recently. And it's also why there are very few adults in the actual game, and a lot of it is just you battling kids or old people, because old people and kids didn't go to war, basically. So a lot of it lines up to me, and I like the fact that there might be a war because some of these areas are based on like Japan and China, so it's not like historically too far off. Like there could have been.
There was a giant nuclear blast.
Yeah. So, and those are just a few of them. There's like a whole bunch more, and some of them do get really dark. Like I kept some of like the ones that weren't dark to not depress myself by reading them, because there are really some depressing ones about like the creation of some of the Pokemon, like Cubone's wearing the head of his dead mother.
Oh my god.
Like it's kind of messed up.
So like how many of these, because I know with a lot of fan theories, like creators of these things will interact with them. Sometimes they'll like disprove them. Sometimes they'll be like, I don't know, ha ha ha. Like, has there been any interaction from the creative side to these theories?
Some of like them can be disproven in some of the new games, and like I said, like the producer of the new Sun and Moon one kind of like jokingly said it's more like a fancy hotel, but not like concretely saying, "Hey, you're wrong," kind of thing. Not that I've ever seen, and I think just because of that reason, like they let some of this stuff be vague so people can talk about this stuff, which I like, because a lot of the conversations that I had growing up were like, how did Pokemon exist? Or why does Ash age? How could we be like Ash and not age and just stay 10 forever? So that's the kind of stuff that I like. And then we have some fan but why those. But I also have some Pokemon real fun facts that might be interesting to go through depending on how much time we have left. So the first kind of like fast fact thing that people might not know about, or maybe people may know about, I'm not really sure. Twitch Plays Pokemon was a huge phenomenon back a couple years ago. So for those of you who aren't familiar with it, it was a social experiment and a channel on a video game live streaming channel called Twitch, for those of you who aren't familiar with Twitch. And basically what they did was people tuned into the stream and they basically kind of like crowdsourced and voted on the moves that they would do, like every move that they would do, and they use that to play the entire game. At one point, it had over 1 million, like through the first run through of the game, Twitch estimated that over 1 million people interacted with the game, and that holds the Guinness Book of World Records for having the most participants in a single player video game of all time. I remember watching it back in the day. It's actually a really, really great social experiment, especially because they got through the entire game by voting and like they beat everything, and it was ridiculous.
I wish they would have a different name for that. Most participants in a single-player online game. Well, that's cool. You just need 2, and you can like defeat the whole.
Yeah, but they had a million.
Well, I know. I guess it's just funny because it's like a single-player game. So anything more than one, like breaks the game.
Guinness Book of World Records. So they've gone through almost all of the generations doing this. So basically, all of the games they've done this. And in honor of the 1-year anniversary of the original run, they started Red over again, and their goal was to complete the main storyline and catch all 151 Pokemon, and they did it. And they did all this in about 39 days. So, and it still goes on today. Like, they still have a couple runs of it, but they've beaten almost every game over the last few years, and it's really, really cool. Because I never would have thought that they'd be able to do something like that, but they've been able to do it with almost all of the games, so it's pretty cool.
That's awesome.
In the game themselves, there's a lot of pop culture carryover. I think one of the biggest ones is the Pokemon Hitmonchan and Hitmonlee. In the American version, they're based off, of course, Jackie Chan and Bruce Lee, but in the Japanese version, they have different names, and they're named after a famous boxer and a famous kickboxer, so slightly different. There's a ton of like in-game references in terms, like, there's Dragon Ball Z references, Galaxy Quest, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, Stand By Me, more song lyrics than I can list in this podcast, of just like people saying Great Balls of Fire or, hit me with your best shot. And then after you beat them, they say, fire away and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of song references that basically like anyone would recognize in it. One of the most recognizable ones is as the games go along and evolve, the handheld ones, there's always a Nintendo console in that first room. So they started with like an NES back in the day, and then now they have like a Wii U, and I guess in the next one they'll probably have like a Switch in there. That you can kind of look at and see what they're playing. A lot of the times, like the first one, they're playing like Mario, one of the original Mario games. So it's pretty cool. Something I thought Matt might be interested in 2008, a scientist discovered a protein and named it after Pikachu.
I do remember this, but I do not remember what the protein did.
I don't know either, but I imagine it was cool because it was named after Pikachu. And like I mentioned before, there's many areas in our world referenced in the game. So like there's references to like South America and like Italy and stuff like that. So it kind of just gives more sense to, is this really our world, or what's going on and things like that. And that's just a few of the fast facts that I wanted to go through because I thought they were really interesting, especially the Hitmonlee and Hitmonchan one, because they're two of the, I think, more recognizable Pokemon. And I like that they gave us a version and the Japanese kept a version that would be recognizable to themselves.
That's actually really interesting.
And then I guess to wrap up, we'll just go through some fan but why those.
Cool. I want to start it off with Asa, our former editor. We love you, buddy. He gave us his fan but why though. Asa says, I think, and by the way, Asa is in the UK, so this is international here.
It's written in British.
It has U's.
I had to translate it from the Queen's English.
Cooler.
Okay, and he says, I think Pokemon matters because it's a cross-generational platform. I can go outside and find kids playing Pokemon Go. I can find people my age playing Pokemon Go, and I can find people in their 60s and 70s playing. Quite a few of those where I live. Pokemon is a very simple concept that brings people together in a way that very few things can.
I like it. Good job, Asa. Thanks, bud.
It is a simple concept.
It really is. Go catch Pokemon.
Next one?
I think he's pulling them up.
Oh, I didn't know who was reading them. I thought you had.
I just said Aces because it wasn't letting me copy.
That's fine.
So we have a few that we got off of Twitter. One from our good friend from Beltway Banthoswara. He said, it reinforced my love for animals and the environment and gave me an aspirational figure who always aims to achieve harmony and balance in our world, Lugia, which I love. And so we have Ash Miko on Twitter also saying, I had crippling social anxiety and it gave me something to talk about with people. It also made my life kind of difficult because my name is Ash, which I think is hilarious. And then a last one that we have is from my good friend Angel Ritchie, who's probably the other, Pokemon person that I have in my life. He gave me this Charmander here. Our viewers can't see it, for my little Charmander friend. I got that from him. And he's the one who recommended I go watch the Pokemon movie despite our dislike for what happened in it. He says it is a reminder of my childhood memories and provided a way to, even to this day, to meet friends. The characteristics of Ash and his friends are motivators to achieve your grand goals and also to show those around you, strangers or not, genuine kindness. Ash is not only on a journey to become the greatest Pokemon master, but also to unite the community between people and Pokemon. Success is not based on the accomplishments you have, but by the quality of relationships you make. Thanks, Angel. Love you, buddy. I think they haven't seen our show notes. They didn't look at any of this, but I think all of those but why those kind of encapsulate everything that we talked about today in terms of the harmony, the friendship, the cross, age group stuff that we mentioned here. So thanks, guys, and thanks for reinforcing what we talked about today. Final thoughts, Matt?
Best part of the Pokemon game was having the miss and no glitch, which we failed to mention, which you could duplicate the 6th item in your bag, and if you catch them, it could corrupt your entire game.
Wait, what?
So the biggest game, so there's a giant glitch in the first, at least from Red and Blue, where if you swim up and down, I can't remember what island it is, up and down the coast, you could catch something basically called a missing no. It looked like corrupt data, basically. There's other things in which, by doing this, you could catch it, which then it did a bunch of weird stuff, possibly corrupting your game. So that's why I never actually caught it. But you could also defeat it and do other things in which it would duplicate the 6th item in your bag. And so a lot of times you had like the perfect Pokeballs that were 100% catch rate, and you just put it in the 6th item and you get 128 of them.
Huh. God damn.
Broken.
Yeah. Or it would fry your system.
Depending on if you caught it and what happened, had a possibility of that. I mean, it just looked like it would fry your system. It literally looks like corrupt data.
Huh. That's actually really interesting. And I'm surprised you never caught it.
Put a lot of hours in that game. I wasn't frying my game.
That's also I felt about it. The corrupt data in that game is literally one of the hardest heartbreaks I've ever had playing video games because you can't get it back. Like
you just look at it and you can't do anything.
Your data's corrupted and it's game over. Okay.
Yeah. I mean.
Oh, I was like, that's.
What?
I was like, yeah. I was like, okay, that's cool.
I mean, obviously, I'm like the big old woman sitting on the front porch for this episode. But I think by and large, the fact that, I guess kind of listening to Aces But Why Though, or like, reading Aces But Why Though, where he said it's a simple concept, like, I've just been kind of thinking, like, this is a really simple concept, and it's built like a giant community around it. And it's not some, like, really intense, like, I mean, I guess it can get intense, but it's a simple story. It's a simple story that has depth and you can put a lot of time into, but the concept itself isn't anything big or grand. It's just catch Pokemon and make friends.
It was $55.15 billion simple.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think I've gone through everything I have to say about why I think it matters in terms of the but why those and just listening to the fan but why those. I think they put it really, really well. So that's really it for me. It's like one of my top fandoms ever. I love it. I probably will always have, a love for that original series. If they ever go back and remake that original series, like those first couple of seasons, the way that Dragon Ball Z did with Kai or Sailor Moon does with Crystal, I'll definitely be watching it for sure because it's that near and dear to me for sure.
So, final question, I guess. Is anybody buying the new game?
I don't have a DS, so no.
That would require us buying a DS and the game.
Yes, I know.
No.
That's honestly probably one of the reasons why I quit playing the games, because I just didn't have the Nintendo consoles.
Yeah.
Well, so I had 64.
But I'm fine. It's because if I want to get that same experience, I'll just go play my emulator of Fire Red or something, and I'll be fine with my life. Because I've done that multiple times on my phone. Just download an emulator and just play some of the newer games that I can that crossover. So. Yeah, but that's it for me. Thanks for coming on this journey with me to be the very best podcast that, like, no one ever was.
So, as always, you can find the podcast at ButWhyThoughPC on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook.com/ButWhyThoughPC. And you can find me on Twitter and Instagram at OhMyMythRandier. Adrian?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Superreese93, SUPERRUIZ 93.
Matt?
You can find me on Twitter at datm18, DATTM18.
And that's it. I just want to go out with the Pokemon rap as much as we can do without Nintendo finding us and shutting us down.
They will do that.
So, like, none. That would be...
15 seconds.
I don't have a theme song to exit.
Well, you could just make one up like Thor.
I don't have anything to make up on this one.
Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon. It's so good. It really is really good.
There ever was to beat all the rest. Yeah, that's my cause.
Electro, Diglett, Nidoran, Mankey, Venusaur, Rattata, Fearow, Pidgey, Seaking, Jolteon, Dragonite, Ghastly, Ponyta, Vaporeon, Poliwrath, Butterfree.
Catch 'em, gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon! I'll search across the land, look far and wide, release from my hand.